Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for an ONF Spotlight on Broadband. And today we're going to talk about SEBA in production, lessons learned. I'm Roy Chua from AvidThink, and I will be your moderator for today. And joining us from Agela is Cem Erdogmus, who is the coordinator of test deployment and support, and Huseyin Aydin, who is the R&D engineer. All right, let's get started with the presentation. Let's turn it over to you, Cem.
Thank you, Roy. Today, Huseyin and me, we are going to talk about SEBA in production and, as Roy says, lessons learned. And for the first slide, here I want to mention how SEBA is different from the conventional deployment. So, first of all, SEBA is an open source based mechanism, and as it is open source based, depends on community. Its integration varies software and hardware components. And SEBA consists of disaggregated components and runs on virtualized environments. So, as you can see in the slide notes, ONTs and OLTs came from different vendors. It's a multi-vendor environment. So, so how do we cope with this? We do extensive and aggressive testing, avoid the interoperability-related changes on this matter. For our SEBA implementation, this is the first commercial deployment of SEBA in production in the live network for about 6 months here. And we deliver triple play services to our customers. It's HSAI, high-speed internet access service, and voice over IP, video on demand, and multicast IPTV services now. And here, my colleague Huseyin is going to present the next ones.
Okay. The field is not like the lab. We had to make a low-level configuration change, such as power levels and similar. Considering the threshold dB values of the ONE devices, it's important to divide the fiber splitter inside the buildings and make the design correctly. In this sense, we made precise measurement for the wiring of the devices we placed in the subscriber houses. To adjust the correct power level, it is necessary to use signal alternator when necessary. In indoor installation, we use 5 dB and 10 dB signal alternators in places. In terms of physical conditions, especially in customer premises, in building deployments, it's an important point that the fiber cable ends are free from the dust and cleans properly. In terms of infrastructure, it's another important point that all systems deployed in the main data centers have power redundancy and UPS support for the emergencies. It's important to be able to deploy offline to the SEBA system against the status of external internet connection in the installed sites. It's very useful to have software packages, repos available on the local services. Our CI/CD pipeline is based on community deployment. In addition, we have another pipeline that we called it configuration pipeline. Configuration pipeline is used for installing and activating ONOS applications, enabling app configurations, and sending netconf configurations to the SDN controller. We can continue. In the lab environment, we physically use up to 100 ONT/ONU devices. The number can increase according to the need. In SEBA, multi-service and multi-subscriber test, the number of physical devices is very important. In this way, we have to change to test the problems we may encounter in the production environment in advance. Apart from use of physical ONU and ONT devices, we also used BBSIM tool efficiently. The use of the BBSIM allows us to test the system limits, hardening tests of SEBA, to try the scenarios that may be difficult to establish in the lab. It provides an important advantage for situations. And also automatic tests make a significant contribution to test process in the field of speed. Multiple subscription scenarios may take a very long time to manually test it. predicting this, we have established very efficient automated test environments. In the UI test, we used Selenium test tool. For CLI-based test, we create tests suitable for our own test environment with Robot Framework. And we have a set up automated testing environment that can automatically pull out daily development of the software development teams from the source code and test them into daily jobs. In this sense, efficient alarm and event monitoring screens were prepared on the UI dashboard. We have written automatic running control script to control the correct setup and operation of defined streams for the subscriber services with frequent time intervals. Apart from the UI dashboard, the control scripts we prepare run automatically on the servers at the CLI level with this time adjustment. It sends external alarm and status information on an externally designed web server. We offer ease of alarm and performance monitoring by integrating with operators' OSS BSS systems. Cem will continue.
Yeah, here up to this slide, Huseyin is mentioned about the preparation steps and also the important reminder for site installations in terms of power redundancy, in terms of PON power level adjustments, and these are common points for the legacy and also valid for SEBA installations. And we insist to remind about all these issues if you want to go to the real site deployment. So here I'm going to talk about some lessons learned, topics that we have some problem predictions and solutions. So we have many, we made many tests in our lab environment. We faced many situations, and I'm going to mention about some of these in this presentation. So let me talk about the first one is in lab testing, detection of problematic ONU and ONT devices. It's a very important point. In this lab testing production environment, in the lab testing and production environments, detection of problematic ONU ONT devices can be happen. These types of situations can be happen, and detection is very important. Compatibility problems can be occur as firmware-based or physical malfunctions may be happen. We tested every ONT and ONU devices in lab carefully before testbed and production deployments. And if problems on the ONU devices are firmware-based, we are working with the vendor's advice to work with the appropriate firmware updates and retest them in our lab. And in addition to this, I would like to mention that when we receive a new brand model ONU in our lab environment, we pay attention to the device's open ONU adapter compatibility. In order for the device to be integrated with SEBA, its specific information, device's specific information must be defined in open ONU adapters. And if necessary, the code should be edited for these specific devices become testable. And the second one, maybe we can mention about the detection of efficient working condition of SEBA components. It's very important to know the most efficient working conditions of SEBA components like etcd, Kafka, MariaDB, which we are using in our structure, and to make the necessary settings according to these informations. In particular, these subcomponents needs to be deployed considering CPU, RAM, storage, and relative effects of the software. I can give an example. For example, in SEBA, we use etcd database as a subcomponent, and we kept the memory compaction application and set the recommended memory size to proper values against the risk of etcd memory space getting full. And we analyze these types of problems in test environments in very detail and take them to the field with the most accurate modifications. yes, maybe the other one is the high availability issue. It's very important to run pods and services in high available cluster structure in the Kubernetes system. The continuity of the services should be ensured in the node losses that may be occurring result of physical software problems in the environment. So we tested the situation many times in our lab and applied in production in this way. And as a result, we established a safe and successful Kubernetes pod management system in the field. Yeah, for the another important point, we think that the service storage optimization. As I mentioned before at the very beginning of the presentation, SEBA is virtualized environment, and you need the strong server storage to maintain this. So these cleaning situations may occur in the server devices, should be carefully monitored. Accurate and efficient log rotation is very important. And we have tested the most efficient working conditions many times in our lab and applied them successfully in the field. And the other one is, I want to mention here is OSS-BSS integration with operators environment. It's a fact that operators want to manage SEBA type systems from the single point, integrated with their, in the control point of view, with integrated their OSS and BSS systems. This issue is important in terms of, for example, subscriber transactions can be done through OSS BSS applications. Provisions of subscriber services from a single point, and monitoring the system's alarms and performance data from also a single point. Netsia SEBA product has been developed in advance and in accordance with OSS BSS systems used by operators. And the other one is it's important to maintain backward compatibility and rapid feature and enrichment from both from the community and from inside. NetSEBA product has been designed to provide backward compatibility in terms of adding advanced features and enhancing content. In this sense, we work in fully harmony with both internal developer teams and also with the community. And that's all for the presentation. The process for, I can say that the process from the first time it wasn't very easy. And as our teammates, our colleagues, from the very first beginning, we very hard work in progress, and we had a very considerable experience during this process. And our next target, as I mentioned in here, is mass deployment in the operator environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cem, and thank you, Huseyin. That was an excellent presentation. I think it's very important as we look at open networking platforms, right, like SEBA and VOTA and all the other related ONF projects, that we are able to deploy them into operator environments, because I think that's the proof that what we're working on as a collective group works, right? So I think that's really good. So a couple of questions that was actually very interesting, which is when you're working with the different white box platforms and like it eventually, right, we're looking for disaggregated and the like. Did you envision that you spent a lot of time talking about sort of firmware management? Did you envision before the fact that you were going to have to manage firmware revisions, and to make sure that the right level of firmware was in there, needs to be upgraded and managed? Did you think you'd be spending that amount of time beforehand when you were putting this together?
Yeah, Roy, sure. I can say that there are a lot of there are, of course, some difficulties in working with white box environment, as you know. Before each new release of SEBA, we carry out detailed analysis and tests with all the devices we have in our lab. During the software development process, we contacted the relevant vendors and received firmware suggestions in some incompatibilities.
Mm-hmm.
In this direction, we made tests with various firmware in the lab, and yeah, found that it works.
Got it. Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And that's one of the things I'm hearing generally about disaggregated deployment is that it's important that the platform you have actually is certified, is correct, and you maintain it at the right level, right? So that's one of the key things. So maybe speaking of that, like, so you're now looking at mass deployment. So it's going to be, many more households that you're going to be rolling this out to. How do you think, or what's the process that you will be using to manage all these platforms remotely? Because there's one thing in the lab. In the lab, you can run over to the rack, change it, upgrade it, plug in, right? When it's sort of out there in many, many, many households, thousands or maybe tens of thousands of households, how do you envision hardware management, and how do you think you're going to do it at scale, right? Do you have to use techniques like, basically using Redfish frameworks and the protocol, or, will it have to be vendor proprietary sometimes, based on your learning, what do you think?
So we are closely following the device management brigade in this respect. However, until a proper solution is proposed, we consider using management interfaces provided by our own hardware vendors, which is include Redfish and also NetConf, as you say.
Yep, got it. No, that's fine. And in general, are you seeing from the labs, is there sufficient telemetry information that's coming back to allow you to facilitate troubleshooting, especially remote troubleshooting as you deploy these into productions? Are the ONTs and OLTs giving you back the information that you need? Are you seeing that?
Yeah, I can say in the Netsia SEBA product, we have a wide alarm and performance counter capacity that we can get from both OLTs and ONU devices. And in our lab studies, we have tested PON fiber level alarm conditions in great detail, I can say. So we can say that we are in good condition at the point of troubleshooting on this matter.
Got it. No, thank you. Excellent. And, maybe, sort of for both of you looking at the SEBA code base, right? Because there's always a question, if I'm a carrier, right, I'm looking at this like, is it ready? Is the quality there, right? In your experience with the SEBA code base, right? What were you surprised by the quality? Was it, what's the most positive, right?
Okay, I see. I can say that the SEBA code base has been designed in accordance with the development of some advanced functions. And in a sense, we can say that we found it very successful. Although we are not in the developer team, so we are testing team, as you know, but we see that our software developer colleagues are making advanced deployments on this basis. For example, in unicast and multicast service area. And we have a chance to test these developments in our lab successfully.
Got it. And then maybe, so as you said, you're not necessarily on the development team, but what feedback would you give now that you've actually run it, you've tried it out, you're now looking at production? What's your primary feedback to the development team in terms of what you want to see them improve?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we give many feedbacks to our development team, of course, but this is an end user product, so people are going to use in their homes for many types of services. So in our tests, we are trying to make tests with the perspective of end user experience. And at this point, we convey some useful feedbacks that we observed being evaluated through their development process. And also, we test from the perspective of operational engineers working in the telecom operators also.
Right.
This is another important point. In this sense, I think we have an important feedback on UI screen developments, for example, for more user-friendly usage for the network operator, engineers. And at this point, we can say that the UI screens we have developed are much more user-friendly than the efficient than many vendors OSS applications.
Very nice. So it looks like it's actually on track, and the primary feedback is around usability, making it easy to understand, easy to use, right, more efficient, and
correct.
Making good progress. That's excellent. One other question here about so you talk about Kubernetes, you talk about etcd, you talk about all these different running processes and the like, right? Does Kubernetes itself, as sort of the orchestration, are you seeing enough visibility around the running services that make up, like the subcomponents, right? The ONOS, the NEM, the NEM, the VOLTA. Are you seeing enough visibility to give you visibility into what's going on?
Yeah, I can say that in our microservice architecture in the Kubernetes environment, we use Kubernetes tags such as namespace, pods, replica sets, deployments, and etc. And so we can achieve visibility in the Kubernetes environment, surely. But we can monitor apps when they're scaling, deploying, running, and crashing. But I can say it's a little bit limited now. So these are not enough for production, maybe at the moment, but we need more detailed information for pods, services, like performance metrics, resource usage, logging and alerts, and many, and etc. So we tried and integrate third-party solutions like Prometheus and maybe Metric Server on this process.
Yeah, no, I think, by the time you're in the production deployment, I think you learn a lot about all the microservices, how they coordinate among each other, right? Mm-hmm. Resource utilization, understanding real resource utilization, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting because Kubernetes orchestrates, but it doesn't have any understanding of the service itself, right? There's no service level understanding. And I think what you're developing over at Agela, right, Netsia, is an understanding of the services and the service context, right, for these collaborating microservices. So I think that's extremely valuable. So maybe just to wrap up here, maybe, so if I'm watching this, right, I'm a carrier, I'm looking at SEBA and saying, looks like it's, kind of ready, what's your advice to someone that's looking at it and thinking about it? What would you say to them?
It's the next generation technology, I can say, and we are very highly progress on it, and we have many experience as Netsia Agela. I suggest them to look over this technology very carefully and try to, adapt their network environment as soon as possible to this technology. But it's also time consuming and also not consuming time, they can, profit money and also, they can, take many advantages for the, open source platform in terms of open source platform development.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like your experience was very positive, and I think it looks like that SEBA and the ONF stack, in fact, is ready for production and prime time, and looks like it's a new era of open networking. Very interesting.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, it's not without it's never perfect, right? Everyone has to work at it, but the advantage here is that they can contribute back, right? And we can improve it, right? Benefit for everyone. So I think that's great. So again, I wanted to thank you, Cem, and thank you, Huseyin, for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Roy.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And audience, hopefully you enjoyed it. And if any questions, you know how to reach the ONF. Thank you.